lot in those years. Took a few years break. I did 2 years working for the Humane Society, teaching plant-based foods throughout the United States. And then I did another 2 years as a head chef at a hospital, but I really missed working with students, and I really missed just the vibe of school districts. And this job, I wasn't looking for it. It just popped up. A lot of you guys know Miguel Villarreal. And he had just posted on LinkedIn that it was open, and I just took a chance and thought, well, maybe it's time to go back. And I've been here for over 2 years. I love it. So back in the saddle here. And kind of what I was going to talk today about is a little bit about a lot of bidding that I've learned over the years. Being in a small school district at the beginning at Campbell, what I found was whenever I joined a bidding co-op, I felt like our district was too small to meet the minimum. So say Goldstar would win so many items and other companies would win so many items, but if we couldn't even meet the minimum, we were still getting some items that were won from other places at other places just to kind of meet the minimums there. And it ended up being kind of a lot of work for me to chase around trying to save a nickel on a case here and there. And of course, those are big decisions, right? Because 7,000 cases of something ends up being a lot of money that I could save. But it being so small, we were wasting money buying stuff we weren't going to use right away to try and meet minimums. So it just took a lot of learning. And when I finally got the the gist of it at Campbell, that's when we grew. And a lot of those standards started to come down. We lost a lot of people because no one was really participating anymore. By the time I left there, it was a totally different machine. And now that we're on universal meals and I'm at even a slightly smaller school district, I find those same issues. You know, being part of a larger co-op is a little difficult. So I went out to bid on my own the last 2 summers. And although the downside is that it did take kind of a long time, the upside was that we locked in prices that some were better than using Sodexo. So we do use Sodexo for some of our purchases. We also have a lot of purchases we're doing outside of Sodexo because the price is right or because the vendors have some items that we want. Where plants and plant-based food fall into this is like, we try to do anything that is vegetarian. We try to do it vegan, or we try to do it meatless. And I'll give just a random example. We use Vegenaise in our coleslaw so that everyone can have it. There's that old saying that if it's vegan, then vegetarians can eat it, but if it's vegetarian, vegans may not be able to eat it. So being able to bid on items like that, like vegan mayonnaise or avocado, pulp and things like that, that I can kind of add into items where maybe an egg-based sauce or spread would go is huge for us. We do tofu and fried rice instead of egg. And so, going to bid on stuff like that is a little more difficult because I feel like the demand is still not super high. We've gone with some smaller vendors like Go Cheetah, where I was referred to them by Los Gatos High School District because they have I can't remember the name of the company, but they have a chef company that's running there. And I met with them and kind of walked through how they do some of their stuff. And so there's some smaller vendors that we're getting like oat milk from because we're doing oat milk in our smoothies. And we also are using silken tofu to make ranch so that it's like a protein-packed ranch as opposed to a more fatty ranch dressing. So, for me, this bidding process, I'm sure you guys know, it's like as a food service director, we're literally getting pulled everywhere. In fact, right when I joined this call, I was on another call and it was like 10:54 and I'm like, I gotta go. I'm like about to have a meeting. And that call I had put off from like 2 hours ago because I got called to go help receive. I mean, you guys know that we wear a lot of hats in food services and especially in K-12. I never thought I would be more busy here than I was in restaurants. But quite honestly, I go home with my little Fitbit. It's like 13,000 steps. I'm dying. Literally every day I go home, I'm like, I'm dying. But anyways, I wanted to talk a little bit about Planetarians too, because it's, some smaller companies that are newer. I feel like I'm not able to get their product in. So I try to, email as many people as I can and try to have us all put in good words at places like Danielson or wherever, where they have these, they have a massive amount of school food. And for us to try and get more plant-based foods into those regular vendors is huge for us and for them. Like they can make a sale on a new item, but they also don't want to bring something in that's not going to get used. And right now we've been back and forth with this pizza dough, this Rich's pizza dough shells, because we're not going through as many as we thought because they're not fitting in our containers. So then I've reduced these special orders. And I know you guys can relate. It's like at the beginning of the year, I'm like, pizza's popular. We'll take thousands. And then halfway through, I'm like, I only need 20. And they're like, wait, what? So you know how it goes. It's like, the numbers are constantly adjusting. But I know like for vegan and plant-based items, I feel like those numbers are actually increasing and not decreasing in demand. Plus there's that whole thing of like the meat eaters and the vegetarians can eat like planetarian strips, and they can eat like a sun butter and jelly sandwich. There's so many things that are vegan that other students can eat. In fact, this morning we did a hash brown bowl, which is a new popular item for the middle school, and it's already vegan and gluten-free. Like literally they don't even know. Like if we put a sticker on that, they'd be like, oh, I don't want it. Kind of like when you say, oh, the pizza's whole grain, and they're like, no, thank you. But if you just don't say anything, it's like, they grab it and they're loving it, except for the increase in consumption of ketchup. So that's a little bit about, as far as bidding goes. I know I'm the only person here. I don't have an administrative assistant because my district is pretty small. So a lot of you guys might have teams where you have someone processing your applications or someone who's maybe doing more of the administrative duties. But that's kind of all me because we have about 4,000 students total, and that's in 8 schools. We have 5 of our own schools, and we're vending to additional 3 schools that are way up in the mountains that can't do their own food program on their own, so we're doing it for them. But at the same time with universal meals, I'm purchasing more than I think I ever had back when I had 7,000 students. So
Kerry, let me just ask you a question real quick, and maybe not everybody understands what universal meals are. Could you just explain universal meals real quickly?
Yeah, sure. Post-COVID. So COVID happened when I wasn't in school food, but what had happened during COVID in school food was that they decided to go ahead and serve meals to families remotely, meaning if the families wanted to come to the school district and pick up meals for the week, that they could. And it did so well that they created universal meals where they're allowing every student, regardless of your socioeconomic background, to go ahead and get free meals. And that has really bumped up the participation. And it's like this huge win on all ends. It's been a win with attendance. It's been a win with, like decreasing absences and better grades. Like it's been an all-around win. Jobs, people who have only been able to work 2 to 3 hours a day. And you guys know that it's like, don't hire anyone over 4 hours a day. We don't want to pay benefits. It's like they're starting to work so many hours because there's so many more mouths to feed. So universal meals, every year it's like you nail biting. Is it going to be renewed again? So it is going to be renewed next year. But after that, we really don't know. And we're hoping it'll be forever because everyone's working, everyone's eating. I really don't see a huge loss in food, in production, in food cost. I actually see an increase in everything, including, the benefits outside of just my department. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. I think that sheds some clarity. And thank you for touching on the bids. I know that was one of the topics that I wanted to bring up and talk about as somebody who's kind of new and an outsider with a vendor. I wanted to understand a little bit about the bid process from your perspective and how that really enables or affects the K through 12 system. So it sounds like it's a lot of craziness that happens. Are there some positives from the bidding process? Is it does it kind of streamline things a lot easier for you guys after getting all these bids in to make the year run more smoothly? And on top of that, are there some areas that you think it could be improved to make it easier for you?
I mean, honestly, going to bid is great for locking in prices for items. Clearly, I mean, I can save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year by just maintaining the prices that were promised to me at the beginning of the year. But the downside is that if last year every student loved a certain kind of muffin and this year they don't, and I've already been on that muffin, then I've got to like find another muffin or something, something like that. It could be anything. It could be a burrito. It could be anything. But so it's like this moving target. I hate to say it, but I wish that we could rebid like 3 months into the school year, because I feel like those items would change. But absolutely no one's going to want to do all of that administrative work a second time. It's already so overwhelming. It takes the majority of like the month of June and May for me, and it's like due in June. So yeah, I mean, that's probably the one thing, is it's a moving target. And I used to not think much about bidding until I worked at Il Fornaio, which is a Italian chain here in the Bay Area, for years. And I was at a chef's retreat, and we were taste testing canned tomatoes, and the head chef was like, this is like a $1 million decision. And it really impacted me when he said that. They buy so many canned, tomatoes from Italy, and the price difference might be 5 cents or 10 cents a can, but that overall savings could be as much as $1 million. And that's the same for us. I mean, we buy hundreds of cases of some items that are so very popular, and I need to save where I can. And if someone's saying, if you buy it from me, I'm going to give it to you for 4 cents a unit less, I'm going to jump at that,
Yeah.
So it's a real mix.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's very clarifying. And a question that kind of spins into the initial question that anybody who showed up late, one of the topics we're going to ask Kerry about, since she has so much experience, is hosting a feedback-driven sampling event to get your team and students on board with new products. And my question still on the bid topic is, so you get to go to a lot of events throughout the year. You probably have tons of vendors like us kind of inundating you with new products. How do you navigate or pick what new products you're going to put on the bid when the time approaches and all these things are happening, and you need to get your pantry items in place and make sure they're there, but maybe you also want to offer something new, or you want to bring in something that you think would increase the nutritional benefits for the students. How do you make those decisions?
The last tasting I did, I always want the students to taste it. When my kids were the age of like middle school and elementary, I had them taste it because they had pretty good feedback, but they're older now. So we had the biggest decision over the summer was to bring in this plant-based milk machine. And I really didn't want to bring it in I knew at least, 40% of the kids were not going to at least try it and start to use it regularly. So I used my wellness committee distribution lists, because I felt like it had a mixture of parents from every of students from every one of our sites. It had a couple of administrators, a handful of teachers, and then a few employees. So I sent that email out in the beginning of summer and gave them like 2 dates and said, please, I'm just going to open up the cafeteria here at the middle school. I gave the address. I had a big sandwich board the day of saying, come in this way. I had big tables, and then I had them try like blind taste, like 4 milks. And then I bought everyone pizza. So it was like a pizza party. And then on the second taste, I had a lot of little samples. So it was more like, is this too spicy or not too spicy? Or do you like this one as opposed to this one? So it was still like a lot of blind tasting, but I feel like the parents of the wellness committee felt like they got like special treatment for helping us volunteering throughout the year in the committee. And then I had this really big mix of students from kind of all different backgrounds. tasting the food and giving honest feedback. And the bribe is always pizza. I'm sorry. You come, you get pizza, or you'll get, something crazy from me. And and that has worked out good. Those decisions so far have been amazing. And like I said, some of it I'm like, really, I didn't really like the flavor of this or that, but they loved it and we brought it in and everyone likes it.
So it pretty much comes down to the student's decision, and it sounds like you've come up with a pretty creative way to get their feedback on that. Well, bribing them with pizza, I'm sure that works.
Creative.
And I know we have some other attendees here. Did anybody want to kind of chime in and offer their insight into how they might decide on new items at all? If anybody would like to, they're more than welcome to stick their hand up, or we can move on. Okay. Well, looks like Randall. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I mean, we do pretty much the same, same process. We test everything with our students and make sure that we get their buy-in before launching anything. It's a really important step in the process.
Would you
Go ahead.
do it over the summer?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Would you do that over the summer?
No, we typically do it during the school year because we have summer school and summer feeding, but we have a lot fewer students. So we try to do it during the school year. We try to do focus groups, and we try to do tasting throughout, the school year at different sites with all the students there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I actually have a question. Maybe Randall and Kerry could both answer. As a vendor who has a new product, what makes it easiest to sample that product to the students? Is it if we actually come in and do something supportive in conjunction with you, with students, or is it just making sure that we send you samples that are available for you to use? We're kind of we're actually in the process of putting together kind of an educational tutorial video, which would go step by step. I was actually just at West Contra Costa with Randall, let us use their kitchen the other day to shoot some footage. But maybe if you have some ideas on what would make that process a little easier, or how we could help from our side, it would be great to hear. Sounds like maybe Brittany wants to chime in.
Yeah. Anytime we have a vendor that tells us, hey, we want to test something with your
maybe Brittany, could you just tell us who you are and where you're
of course. I'm a nutrition services supervisor at Hacienda La Puente Unified in Southern California.
Cool, thank you.
So anytime we have a vendor come in, or we're offered samples, if I'm sent samples, and unless I have it on my calendar, sometimes they sit there. Just to be 100% honest. Sometimes they sit there and I look at this, I've got like 3 different samples on my desk right now, and I'm like, shoot, I've got to get to that. I got to get that done. But we're very busy at all times of the day, constantly. So when I have a vendor that says, I'm going to bring a product to you, I'm going to bring, it's going to be in this recipe form, whether it's we tested a vegetable dumpling with students before we went on winter break. They brought everything, they came out. They actually made the recipe and then introduced it to the kids. We were there as backup and obviously support to talk with the kids and say, how do you like? We were able to focus a little bit more on the students and the student reactions and conversations with students, as opposed to me being the one to put the recipe together. And I love recipes, don't get me wrong. I love cooking. I enjoy doing that portion of it. But I have to prioritize my day. And so when I'm able to have a vendor come in, and then I can be that support system, and I can have those important conversations with students in the moment to say, what do you think? What is your thought process? What if you are tasting this product, what would you want to see it on? Because I'm always looking for ingredients that are kind of, I can cross utilize amongst my menu. And so if I'm able to have those very important conversations with the students, they're giving me that feedback in that moment. As in a situation where I'm the one doing that recipe testing with the kids, and I'm here, have a sample, let me know, vote on it. I'm not able to have those one-on-one quick conversations with students. And so a vendor coming in saying, I'm going to do this kind of the legwork portion of it. I know sometimes it's not ideal and it's not always going to be the way, but that is something very beneficial, at least to us in our district, where I'm more likely to say, hey, yeah, let's get you scheduled. Let's have you come in, test it out with my kids. I'll be there for support. And the turnaround, I think, is much faster when we have that being offered as opposed to here's samples. And there's times when I'm just like, you know what, I don't have any time on my calendar. Send me a sample. I'm going to test it out, and then I'll go through the process on my own timeline. But one over the other, the vendor putting in that additional effort, it goes well better with us here in this district, at least. And we're able to get that on the calendar much, much faster.
And then Brittany, does that translate generally to, if it's a new item, something that you'll then, put up on your bid for, that season or
Yes.
the coming year?
100%, because then again, it goes back to that turnaround being so much faster. We're able to say, okay, you know what, this is an 85%, 90%, 100% approval by these kids. And so now, like I said, I look for things that I can cross utilize. We got the approval on the taste for this item. Now let's see what we can look, I look at my skeleton menu for the next year. And then when we go into bid season, I can say, okay, I'm going to use this in 3 different recipes next year. So then let's do the math and let's figure that out. Okay, yes, the usage is going to be big. Let's get it on bid.
Wonderful. And then Brittany, one last question, and then maybe Kerry can speak to it from her experience. When you do have the opportunity to walk around and talk to students, is there any, kind of system that you use to track the feedback, or are you just kind of going on word of mouth and kind of weighing that at the end of the time that you have to speak with the students?
I think it's, for us, at least it's a case-by-case basis. If it's a little bit more, we have a little bit more time behind it, we will go out and do surveys. We've started implementing student focus groups, so we can actually sit down and have conversations with certain stakeholders at mainly high schools. We have a couple student board members who will pull them in, and they kind of speak on behalf of the students at their site in particular. So that's obviously going to be a little bit, that's easier for us to just, put that into numbers and say, yes, we met with these, we had a focus group, we talked about it in depth. But other times that's not doable. And so sometimes it is just in the moment saying, hey, these students had this really great idea. And then we can put surveys out. Is this something you want to see on the menu? Is this something that you'd be interested in? A fellow student brought this to our attention. Is this going to, grasp? Are you really enjoying? Does this sound good? We also do student chef competitions, and we're trying to do a student recipe submission. And so anytime you can get that student feedback, it's wonderful. But to just be honest, 100%, that's not always doable. And so, yeah, sometimes those in-person, in-the-moment conversations really do guide us a little bit better than obviously nothing at all.
And then as a vendor, is it helpful if when we do come in and do some kind of sampling with the students, if we provide like a questionnaire for the students to fill out? Or we've also kind of been toying with the idea of most kids are engaged in social media these days. Do we make some kind of survey on like an Instagram poll that would be accessible? What are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, we've done QR codes where it's just, most kids have a phone, and it's just they're more comfortable with that. They're more likely to actually go on their phone and type in their feedback as opposed to writing it out. And I will tell you, at least from my standpoint, and I can't imagine very many people arguing this, anytime that you take a task off of our desk, we are 100% on board with you. So if you're saying, I will take this on and I will create this survey for your students to fill out, you're not, at least from here, I'm not gonna fight you. Like, please do so, because that helps. Like I said, I don't know very many people that will argue. Maybe the people who just want to have a little bit more of that control from the feedback, but we're still getting the end result is still the same. You're just doing a little bit of that legwork, which definitely helps us out.
Awesome. And then maybe, so that sounds like a good perspective on, you know, what helps with the students. And maybe Kerry, you could share anything from your experience that is helpful as well, and then take it a step deeper. And once the students are into it, what else needs to happen with the buy-in from your team to actually move that forward, if there is anything?
A couple of things. One thing I ask students, just in general, when I'm walking the quad or when I have them in for taste testing, is I always ask them what their favorite restaurants are. I say, you know, give me your top 3 favorite restaurants. I want to know where their families are going and what they're eating. I want to know, you know, sometimes like today, I said, we're going to have pizza at lunch. Don't forget to come back for lunch. And they were like, is it Domino's? And it's like, no, we made it, you know, but I want to know what their brands are. I want to know because maybe I can mimic that brand recognition, like doing a Chipotle bowl or something, if that's where they eat. The other thing I do when I walk the quad is I look in the garbage can because lunch is free universally. I want to know who's really just grabbing it and maybe chucking it, or maybe they just came in for milk and they don't know that they don't have to get anything else. So I'm looking to see what they're throwing away. I want to know if they're throwing a lot of something away. Then maybe we need to not carry it anymore. And then
yeah, that's actually funny you bring that up. I was just down at Compton Unified, and I think Ashley's on the call with us.
Yeah.
But we were walking around talking to the students, and she peeked in one of the trash cans, and she said, hey, you know what? The people who are walking around taking the trash out know a lot more what these kids are, eating or not eating sometimes than we do. So that is a very good point. But anyway.
I forgot there was something else you wanted to ask too.
Yes. So I think that's a great piece of information. You know, what do you actually ask the students when you're walking around? But also, once the students confirm they like something, are there any challenges, or how do you get the buy-in from the rest of your team to actually move that forward? Or are there any other hurdles once you verify that the students like something?
The staff for here seem to be pretty open-minded when I introduce new things. I try not to bombard them with like a ton of new things because we do have a rotating menu, but I definitely will walk through with all of them. Or like when you came, Max, it was like me and you and the other guy, our custodian who was here because we started a little later. But the three of us tested this Planetarians like fajita little taco thing that was amazing. And then we took that feedback to the staff and we're like, oh, if the kids like this, you know, I think it's going to be really easy. We can make tostadas. We can do this. We can do that. And it already created that buy-in for staff as far as producing the food. And that's my biggest hurdle. If the staff feel like it's putsy to make or to season or to, you know, if it sticks to the pan, if there's all these things that slow them down, then they're in the mind of like, I need to produce food. I don't want any interruptions. So yeah, if they have the buy-in there, then it's like as good as done. And then then it's as if the kids grab it, great. If they don't, then we need to look at like, can we make it more appealing, or is it just not popular?
Awesome. I think that's super helpful. Did anybody else who's on the call have any ideas around what's helpful in terms of asking students, or challenges in getting buy-in from the rest of your team? It sounds like, in Kerry's words, versatility is pretty big. That also sounds like Brittany was speaking to that as well. If something's versatile, it's going to go over a little bit easier. Randall?
Yeah, I think when you guys came out and you did the taste testing of the hot dogs at our elementary school, it was really helpful that you had the board up with the stickers of, you know, they liked it, or maybe it wasn't for them. You know, because especially in elementary school, the kids do not have cell phones necessarily.
Oh, that's true.
In fact, largely. So I don't know. I hope not.
So maybe the younger grades, something visual and hands-on would be more appropriate.
Yeah, I think so. And for them, I think having that that interaction, it makes them feel like a part of the decision-making process. You know, they get that agency, and for that age group, I think that's a huge part of getting them actively participating in whether or not they want to see that product.
Awesome. And then Randall, do you guys use focus groups in your district, or is it more just go into, I know we went into the middle school, and that, I mean, that was a great sample of population, but
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. And, you know, I think one of the problems that I found with focus groups is like, you don't get the broader scope. Like when kids are in the larger groups, when they're out, you know, in the lunch line during lunch, they tend to make different decisions when they are, other than when they are in a focus group in a room with only, you know, like 9 other kids. You know,
Yeah.
there's a significant difference, I think, in the way they're thinking about what they're eating. So I think, you know, to have them out in the wild per se, in the lunch line, you know, their mindset is slightly different, and I think that's a little bit more realistic.
Yeah, went out here and take one with you.
So it gets a little more political when you get the focus groups, and it's a little more, you know, democratic maybe when it's the whole population. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's, you know, I wanted to talk about one more item. I know all of you guys are super busy, so I don't want to take up all of your time, but you know, I kind of wanted to talk about what is hot, if there's some trends that you guys are seeing. I was just speaking with, I don't think she's on the call, but I had a conversation with Ivy Marks down at LA Unified, and she was talking about how, you know, kids love something until they don't, and they're ready for the next thing. Randall mentioned that we had brought a you know, an alternative protein hot dog in to test with the kids, although it's not, you know, completely ready for commercialization yet. We are always kind of on the lookout for what is new, what's hot, what would be helpful. So I don't know if you guys saw any trends over the you know, end of last year moving into this year, or things that kids have really been chatting about. But if anybody has any insights or ideas, or maybe something they wanted to bounce off of one another, it'd be great to hear.
So I think one thing that I know it's hard in a K-12 setting,
In the back.
but anytime you can get customization of what it is that they're eating, where they're adding kind of what they want as they want it in little bits and pieces. That's why Chipotle is so popular. That's why Yogurtland, Menchie's, that's why those types of places are so popular, because they're able to kind of customize what it is that they want. And they might not like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't know what that is particular. So instead of saying, here's this bowl, you know, let's say you're going to do a burrito bowl and it has all these ingredients in it. Well, if a child doesn't know what one of those ingredients are, they're not likely to take it, right? But if you allow them to choose that in their own doing, like, you know what, I don't know what this green, feathery, fluffy looking thing is, but here I'm going to take a little tiny bit of it so I can try it. They're more likely to actually enjoy that food. And so I think that that's why customization is so huge. And I think that's why it's been a trend. And that's just in restaurant life in general. I think it's been a trend. And I don't see it losing steam. Because it just allows for them to make those options in that moment. They get to, you know, try things here and there. And then that's how those palates develop, and they start to enjoy new things and try new things, because they're given that option and choice to choose in small scales or large scales, depending on how they feel. And it could change. And that's where maybe you don't lose that participation, because, you know, the next time it rolls around on the menu, it's not the same exact thing. They could actually change it up a little bit to what they like.
No, that's a pretty good insight, and kind of what I'm hearing is maybe the kids want familiar items from restaurants that they eat at, which is kind of what Kerry mentioned, asking the kids what their favorite restaurants are and kind of getting an idea to make things familiar. So I guess that's a pretty good piece of educational insight. We do have Lisa's on the call with us, and she's from Nourish Partners, a group that's supporting healthier foods into K through 12 institutions and trying to make things a little easier. Lisa, could you offer maybe a few words on if you guys model any of your recipes after popular restaurants, or if you guys do use any of that information in your success?
Yeah, totally. I think,
and maybe you can tell everybody who you are and what it is that you guys do.
thanks for the plug, Max. I'm Lisa, former food service director and menu planner and dietitian. So our consulting group, Nourish Partners, helps both districts and industry with menus and recipe development and getting cool products on menus. I guess in my experience, definitely, like everyone said, playing off of current food trends and fast food is always a really good idea. Like someone mentioned the wings of fire. I think spicy is in right now. You'll see it, I mean, everywhere, like spicy chicken nuggets came back, or the spicy chicken fries at Burger King, or, just all those different flavor profiles, or even playing off of seasonal things like McDonald's has the McRib, but it only comes back a certain amount of months during the year. So playing off of those trends that like get people hyped and excited definitely is helpful. And I think sometimes offering, meat alternates can be kind of hard, especially for kids that aren't used to it and they're not exposed to it at home. So I think if you can tag onto those trends and offer it as an alternative, or do a sampling of, if you have some sort of like beef bulgogi bowl or something on your menu for that day, also offer the meat alternate option that the kids can just sample at the same time so that they can compare like for like together. And then they can see it taste the same. It might just be a little different texture. Y'all stuff has really good bite though, so it might not be too much of a difference. But yeah, McRib. Yeah. So I think different things like that. But even an example, just from personal experience for a manufacturer I was supporting, I don't know how many people here were doing the walking taco trend a couple years ago, where it's like the Dorito bag and you rip it open and then you dump in the meat and the cheese. Well, there's a granola brand that I'm supporting, and they have a standing bag of granola, and I marketed it as a walking parfait. You dump your yogurt. So you can play off of other trends you've done in other areas with different products. So that's kind of my spiel.
Awesome. No, thanks, Lisa. I think that was super helpful. And then, from the current, K through 12 team, do you see those trends being accessible, or those items available that you need to kind of replicate those things? Or is that a place that maybe, maybe Planetarians, as we evolve, we look at things like McRib and maybe be able to offer something like that to schools to be able to make those crossover decisions a little bit easier. So I guess the question was, are the ingredients accessible to mimic the outside restaurant chain ideas, or do you find that there's a shortage of those?
That's an interesting question. I think it kind of depends on everyone's distributors. I've been finding that with a couple distributors where there's certain condiments, seasonings, sauces where they just don't quite have the right thing. I think we were trying to get chamois for a recipe the other day, and like the distributor just didn't offer it. So, I think those are definitely hindrances, but I think that's where the value add could be brought by the industry side of bringing that inspiration of how to make a really easy and flavorful speed scratch sauce to go. If you can't find the barbecue sauce that tastes just right for the McRib, maybe you guys provide the recipe on how to make a speed scratch sauce. Yeah, it doesn't have your product in it, but it's a value add to the customer so that they can do that. And I think that's really important where, as a former director perspective, directors are super, super busy. Like, I'm sure everyone here is probably like checking their emails, like, wait, someone at the kitchen's calling me. It's lunchtime. It's the busiest time of day. So just making it super easy for the directors and being the one to come with those suggestions, be the one to come with the McRib suggestion. Hey, you can use this hoagie roll with our product, and here's a speed scratch sauce that you can use. Be the inspiration, basically, because sometimes they're just trying to get the food on the menu and get the food from the distributor because of supply chain issues. So sometimes it can be hard to get in that creative space when you're just trying to maintain.
Yeah, I think that's something that the industry probably could provide. Well, great. I know we're kind of starting to wind down here. I know everybody has a million things to do today. I wanted to open it up to ask if anybody else on the call had any other kind of outside questions that we didn't address. Like I said, I'll send out a recap recording. I did find the record button, so it is a thing that exists. I'll send that out to everybody. But yeah, I wanted to open it up and see if anybody else had some questions for Kerry or anybody else who's joined us. I know Brittany and Randall chimed in. There was a few other people who it sounded like they were having some technical difficulties and couldn't speak their voice, but added some comments in the chat, which we really appreciate. But yeah, if anybody else has some questions, please feel free to bring those up. And if not, I can take a minute to kind of go over, I'll give Planetarians a little plug right now. We've been doing some in-person samplings, both at K through 12s and at colleges and universities. And I know the cooking's a little bit different at colleges and universities. They're able to, use fryers, whereas K through 12 is not, which is actually kind of cool with our product. But we did one that I was really excited about, and it was at Central Unified. And we had just cooked our strips as they come in a convection oven, and we did a tikka masala, and it was super easy. And I think it would be probably a low prep item that people could consider if they're looking for something else, even some kind of like Thai curry. But it was like just cook the strips and put them in the sauce, and that would even be good to prep like the day before, or just took a couple minutes to do, and it was pretty straightforward. And we sampled that with all the students and staff at Central Unified. They all loved it. So I think what I'm saying is, if you were interested in introducing this Planetarian savory strips in more of a liquid, I think somebody just mentioned pho on the chat. It would just be a pretty quick, bake in a convection oven, 450 for about 6 minutes, gives them some texture, and it allows them to hold up in any kind of liquid. So that's one thing I just wanted to throw out there.
And I see a few people asking for different recipes in the chat. If y'all would like, we have a LinkedIn page, and then we could share information, recipes, product sampling events that we had right on that LinkedIn page. That way everyone could communicate easily on there. If you haven't had a chance, I'd suggest hopping on that page, and then Kerry could share her ranch dressing, I believe somebody asked for earlier, and any other photos that they'd like from different recipes.
Yeah, that would be great. And Sonny is with, maybe you could tell them who you are, Sonny, just so everybody knows. I know everybody already knows Sonny, but just so he can talk about himself for a little bit.
Yeah, for those that I have not met, my name is Sonny Rodriguez. I'm working here on the Planetarians team, trying to make it as easy as possible to serve sustainable and healthy meals to all the students. I want to help make that transition to the sustainable meals as streamlined as possible. If I could help with putting together sampling events, survey forms, help assist with recipes, that's what I'm here to do. I'm based in Texas, but travel around as far as I can to help your teams out. I've worked in food service for years, had the pleasure of working with Kerry years past in my previous role. and looking forward to meeting all of y'all.
Awesome. Thanks, Sonny. I did have one more last thing before we go. And as I mentioned before, we're putting together a little educational piece of material to try to make it easier for staff and directors to understand what Planetarians is and how they can work with it. And as much as we love to go and do samplings everywhere, we can't be everywhere at once. So the idea and what we've shot already is kind of a video tutorial of unboxing our product, putting it on a sheet pan, seasoning it in a couple different ways, and then including those recipes and pictures of the final product using equipment that we've found in K through 12 opportunities. And outside of that, from your perspectives, what would be helpful or enabling to make, the samples that show up that are frozen easier to put out there in front of the students? Is there anything from an educational piece of video material that would make that easier? And I'd love to hear it if there is.
I think students always love knowing if they're going to positively impact the environment. So one of those one-to-one things like we used to do at the Humane Society, where it's like, or like right now we have this milk machine out that we got through Chef Ann Foundation. And there's a huge poster that came with it that just basically said, look, it's one less carton you're using, and this is how much water you're saving. So something like that, like you could easily do this switch and it would take, this many cars off the road or something like that. But something really short, small, and brief, I think is better than anything, because sometimes we have parents come in, they'll give these long flyers, and I just think sometimes as a teenager, I just I don't have the bandwidth to get more than maybe one piece of information shot into my brain before I'm all of a sudden out the door and talking to my friends.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we have some metrics, so we could definitely include those. And then these videos, they'll be more geared towards, I think, the staff and being able to, know what to do, how to prepare our product. So we'll also include some information for the students as well, for sure. But yeah, that was super helpful. Thank you. Cool. Well, it looks like, we're wrapped up. I think I addressed everything I wanted to. If anybody has any ideas for topics they'd like to see in the future, we're going to try to do one of these quarterly, so every 3 months or so. The other thing I would love to know is I picked this time. I know it's in the middle of the day. It's on a Thursday. If there's times of the week that would be better, it sounds like everybody's busy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But if you do have ideas, I'd love to hear it. So I'll take that into account. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for joining us. It was great for me. Hopefully it was great for everybody else. Thank you, Kerry, for showing up and sharing your wisdom. We'll be looking to have somebody else to answer a few questions in the future. So if you're interested, reach out to me. Otherwise, I will reach out to everybody and ask them. But everybody have a good day and happy bidding season.
Bye. See you later.
Bye, Lisa.
Hey, Jen, thanks for staying on the call.
Yeah, Jen was captivated the whole time.
Hey, that was excellent, Max.
It's getting a little better, right?
It is. It is. I took notes. Good turnout, good questions, good conversation between the attendees. Is very well-rounded.
Nice. Okay, I got